Okay, welcome. So this is session 2 of Edcamp Home. We're talking about digital workstations for Readers Workshop. So welcome, Stephanie and Marquette.
Welcome. Thank you.
So Stephanie, you said you used digital workshops before?
I did.
Workstations?
Yep. So in my first years doing Readers Workshop, and I teach 4th and 5th grade in East Palo Alto, California, I didn't do anything digital really. I had different kinds of stations where kids were doing readers theater and practicing reading with fluency, or doing different things with figurative language and trying to find similes and doing different kinds of little activities, types of things you would find at Lakeshore, basically to keep them busy so I could pull small groups for guided reading or other things. And then I started filling out grants to be able to get iPods and iPads for my classroom, and now have enough devices for kids to share. So now they work with a partner during that hour block of Readers Workshop, and I pull small groups, and they have different activities that they're doing and apps that they use. For example, at our science station, they might be assigned a Brain Pop video to watch. And if you haven't used Brain Pop before, it has really excellent instructional videos. They have a free video every day, and then you can pay for their service or find a password online somewhere. So they would watch that video and fill out a quiz or write about their learning there. And I had a bunch of different stations, probably about 10 different stations that they'd go to, 2 or 3 stations a day. Every day this would happen. And in the past 2 years that I've done this, I've focused a lot on apps, and kids have been consumers of technology and using apps. But this year I'm interested in getting them to create during this time and show their learning and work on things that they're interested in instead of just consuming information in apps. So that's kind of where I'm at. How about you guys?
I teach 9th grade English, and we're on 43-minute periods, so I'm always trying to shove as much as I can. I flip my classroom as well.
Okay.
And we do BYOD, and I can be one-to-one when I can be. So a lot of those same issues that you have with, access to devices, I have that as well. And then trying to do guided reading with them, being able to recognize all the literary elements, we do that as well. I'm really interested, though, in setting up, like, within the classroom space, ways to make it more asynchronous so that the students can be at, like you said, different stations doing whatever tasks. Do you have them use, so they're using school-provided devices, Steph?
Yeah, that's also something I'm interested in this year, is doing a little bit of BYOD. And as of right now, though, I've only ever used my like 10 or 11 iPods that I've purchased with grants and 2 iPads. But I'm also interested in doing BYOD this year. It's tough. I teach in in kind of an inner city environment, so we do have to worry about protecting kids' property a little bit when they bring something in, either on the bus or walking to school. It could be a concern for them to be carrying expensive devices and leaving them in the classroom, and making sure, it puts a lot of pressure on me to make sure that my door is always locked if I take the kids out for recess. But that's something I'm interested in doing this year too. Have you guys done any bring your own device work with your kids?
Yeah, I can chime in here. My district has a pretty interesting BYOD policy. So we have a stoplight in each of the classrooms and in the hallway, and basically any common space, like a hallway or a library or a cafeteria or a study hall, is a green light, so they can use their devices for whatever it is they want to use. And then teachers get to decide what the tenor is going to be in their own classroom. So if I'm taking a test, for instance, I might make it go red. I want you to use, unassisted test is how I word it. Sometimes I'll leave it bright green and let them use, the internet or collaborate with a friend to get their answers. But that's kind of an interesting policy. that my district claims they came up with. So I don't know how true that is, but it's a pretty interesting one. So we use BYOD in my district, and I also am lucky enough to have I wrote a grant, so I got a class set of iPads, which led pretty quickly to us publishing a wiki. Was kind of how I approached this digital workstations in Reader's Workshop. I found it was a good way to, we always talk to the kids about what happens in the real world, right?
Right.
Publishing online kind of made that happen right now. There was no like, when you're in the real world, plagiarism's a problem. No, you need to pull that down. We're going to get in trouble.
Yeah.
So my kids, there was a steep learning curve. This was with juniors. I should have mentioned that. Juniors in an English class as well. Not everybody loved it, but it was kind of I made it a non-negotiable method by which we were collaborating, and I would say probably 85–90% eventually got on board. So I'm gonna work to try to get the rest of them on next year.
Yeah.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah, I actually let my students use devices during tests and quizzes, but I give them like the time factor so that they can't just go and Google every answer. And plus, most of the stuff is asking them for their response to it, so it can't be a Googleable response.
Right.
Right.
Well, do you guys have any sort of liability if a device is lost or stolen and you've asked or encouraged kids to bring them in?
Ooh, hold on. Sorry.
Can we hear ya?
Can you hear me? I think
I
I
can
just
hear-
messed. Marquette's trying to
I
get
can
back
hear
on.
you.
Try now. How about now?
There we go. Yep.
Yay.
I'm still new to this. What was I? Oh, we haven't had much of that happen. I'm in a suburban, fairly affluent district, so that might be why. I don't really know what our policy is on that sort of thing. I imagine we'd go through the typical like disciplinary procedures, file a loss report, but I don't know how it would come back if I said, hey, bring in your iPhone and then it goes missing. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, ours is part of our acceptable use policy. It's and it pretty much says that it's at your own risk. Like if you choose to bring stuff in and it gets lost, broken, or stolen, the district is not liable for it. So it's pretty much, it's at your own risk to bring it in, and again, it's also at teachers' discretion to let the students use the devices. So it's not an automatic given that they're allowed to, just have their smartphones out.
Right.
Because I have some that just choose to want to play games the entire time.
Right.
Not do the work, but it's a battle.
Yeah, definitely. So what kinds of things have you had kids doing during Reader's Workshop on the devices?
On my end, I don't use so much the Reader's Workshop format, but I'll do different activities with the devices. For Mice and Men, I set up a around the room kind of scavenger hunt where they went to different stations. One station was a QR code that they would read an article online, scan the code, read the article online, and then answer questions on a worksheet. And then another station was using their device to record a conversation and using idioms from a Mice and Men. So I did kind of different station activities with their devices, and they worked in partners to get more background information and to use information from the text.
Yeah, I use them a couple different ways. In one case, trying to build schema for some of the work we were reading, I actually used the devices to go on a Google Earth field trip, is how I worded it. So for instance, with my seniors, we were reading Heart of Darkness, and they were really struggling with why so much attention was being paid to the river and the setting, and it occurred to me they really just didn't have the background knowledge to understand what Conrad was trying to say about Africa at that time period. So we took a Google Earth field trip after they'd read a little bit, enough to know they were confused, let's put it that way. And then, basically I just told them, tell me what you notice. And as they zoomed in and in and in, they found, that there were lots of twists and turns in the river. And I said, okay, how might that affect the plot? And they were able to talk about how you might get turned around. They were really, really interested to look for what they called, civilization, which led to another interesting conversation, of course. But, they were looking for cities, and, they found huts by the river. And I pointed out that, the maps we were looking at were not particularly old. They certainly weren't, the maps that would have indicated Conrad's world. So that was a nice way to do that. Have either of you used Subtext as an app?
I have. I love it. The only issue is that it's only compatible with an iPad, and I only have 2 iPads and 26 students. I have a lot of iPods, but I don't think they've released an iPod-compatible version. But that would be my dream, to be able to use that a lot. It seems really fantastic.
I use a reading app that's not Subtext. It's called Gobstopper, and it's a Web 2.0 tool. Have you guys heard of that yet?
I think you may have mentioned it to me before, Kate, but I haven't looked at it actually.
What they've done is taken text from the public domain that are all free, and they've loaded it into their e-reader format, and then the teacher can customize it with questions, annotations, insert quizzes. It's pretty. I've been very happy with it. That you can get some data back, and let me screen share so you can take a look. See. So it's totally free for now. They're in beta testing right now, and once you go in, you can assign the text. Should have signed it quick. Come on. There we go. So I used it for reading Pygmalion, Romeo and Juliet this past spring with my 9th graders. And it's not devices yet, but they're going to have a mobile app released in the fall.
Oh, cool.
But, oh, this is going so slow. Probably because the Hangout's on. They have a summer reading program too, FYI.
Nice.
That it will do everything for you. Everything's already done. You just assign the text. And then when you open it up, just so you can show you what I've been working on, you get, oh, this is taking forever. I don't want to take all the time talking about it.
And
once, this is what it looks like once you go in to a text. You get to see how many questions are in it, how many annotations, how many quizzes, and then this is what it looks like. In a second, I'm getting in there. I've been so excited just to have this as an e-reader option, because I've tried using the cloud Kindle reader, and I never know for sure if they're actually reading the text. So at least this way, I do get a definitive, answers. How well have they read it? How well have they understood it? And then it just loads it nicely into this book here, and then you get little icons for it to pop out with a question.
Very cool.
Which is nice. So I've been thrilled with this, and the annotation feature is one of my favorite things. Because you can load videos, images, and have just to be, it's all that stuff that you're trying to tell the kids while you're reading, and now it makes it that they can go at their own pace. All right, so that's Gobstopper.
Very cool.
That's pretty neat. That looks like it looks very similar to Subtext, but Steph, I've had the same problem you did. I have the iPads, but they're not one-to-ones. They're just a cart. So, I tried to assign something using Subtext, then of course the kids are like, "Oh, I can't get to it from home," and that's true. So maybe Gobstopper would be a good thing to use in the meantime.
Have you tried Subtext through Edmodo? Because I know Edmodo has that.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, I have. I have to confess, I'm not a huge fan of Edmodo. I don't know, any of those like Facebook for education stuff, like let's just use a real deal. So I don't know.
No.
I know.
I love Edmodo.
Yeah,
I'll try it.
I've Edmodo. Oh, Kate, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
My friend, I think her name's Maricela in her G+, added you.
Okay.
Can you see that? Do you have that notification on your main page?
Maricela, is that it?
Yep.
Aha, found her.
Perfect. Is it possible for you to add her here now?
Yep. And then I will
Awesome.
add her to us. Okay. Mara.
Fantastic. I think she'll be able to join us. Cool.
Great.
Yeah, so back to Edmodo. I started out using Edmodo when I first did like a digital style blended workshop, just as kind of an accountability piece. Kids, for example, in the science station where they'd be using Brain Pop, they would have to take a screenshot of the results from their quiz and load that to Edmodo so I could see how they did. Or if they were on a creation app doing some kind of art, like on Doodle Buddy or something like that, and they were making and illustrating a metaphor, they would take a screenshot or upload the photo to Edmodo so I could kind of use it in that way. But I have a really sweet group of kids this year, and I'm keeping them, or this past year, and I'm keeping them this year. And uploading to Edmodo took them a little while, and I knew that they were doing what I wanted them to do. So I kind of just said, spend your whole time working on your project and learning, and I kind of took out the Edmodo piece because it was taking time away from what they were actually doing. But it's tough because I like to see what they're doing, not to stay on top of them and make sure they were doing it, but to just see the cool stuff that they're doing and be able to post it on Twitter and or blog about the stuff that they're doing. So I'm not sure this year. We had difficulty with Edmodo. Sometimes it would take forever for even just a picture to load. But with the new version of Edmodo coming out, maybe they've reworked some of their old bugs and such. So I think I'll look into it again this year.
I can't say enough about Edmodo. I have totally loved it because of the infrastructure with it, and just the convenience factor, the communication. I just like that it's all in one shot deal for me. So it is like on the app, you can't do as much stuff like on a mobile app with it.
Right.
But I kind of overlook that for now and just hope that someday the app will be much better.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I have used it with subtext before. I don't think you get all the full functionality of subtext with it. I think you can post questions for them, but it doesn't post the actual text itself on Edmodo. It assumes that they either have the book in front of them or they have it on an iPad somewhere. I don't think Edmodo is allowed to feed the text of the book through.
Okay. Marquette, any other digital text that you have used? Or digital tools that you like?
In terms of digital text, I've used Dogo News. A current events site, and that also syncs with Edmodo.
Mm-hmm.
The reading level on those are usually between like a 5th to 8th grade level, I find. But it's nice for current events and for kids to be able to discuss current events. They also have Dogo Books, where kids can discuss books that they're reading, write reviews of them, earn badges, and things like that. Kind of similar to Biblionasium, if you've used that before. But those are examples of digital text I've used, I guess. What about you guys? What other tools have you used?
I guess the main one I ended up using last year, we leaned pretty heavily on Google Apps and education, just in general for file sharing, and I think I'll use it next year even for book logs and reports and that sort of thing.
Right.
But the main thing we did in terms of like actually collaborating outside of class and even in class was the wiki. So my students, we were reading The Great Gatsby, and before the movie, and I assigned each of them. I just kind of went through. I read it a million times, and I mined it for cultural allusions, and then I just had them draw one out of a hat, and whatever cultural allusion they had to make a 3 to 5 minute video using their good research skills that they then posted. The goal was to post to the wiki, but then that ended up pretty heavy in terms of content. But it was kind of nice to have them be able to do some research into the background, and then I had them. So whenever Meyer Wolfsheim came up and Arnold Rothstein, and I'd say, wait a minute, who did the video for that? And we could watch it. But we ended up using the wiki. We were on Wiki Spaces. And if I were more confident with Google Hangout, I'd try a screen share, but this is my first one. So we went to, on Wiki Spaces, we set it up basically a chapter at a time, and they had to make a log. Their homework, what I would have normally assigned, like write me what you understood about the book, ended up on the wiki. And it just had to be there by midnight. And the thing, when I asked my students at the end of the year about it, they told me, some of them told me they hated it because they couldn't get around it because they knew I was going to check the wiki and I could see who was doing it. The ones who really liked it, though, they told me things like they were able to see what their friends were thinking, or they were able to benefit from someone else's insight, which is exactly what I was going for. So I think we'll use that sort of publishing tool in the future as well. Thinking I might even have the students create, either by themselves or with a small group, their own wiki, maybe kind of stemming from our main wiki, on which they can include their own reading logs and their own kind of personal reading as well. Because I think if I can find a system to share that sort of thing, we can really increase the idea that smart people read, and as a matter of fact, we're all reading. And then we'll have a way to look and see what each other's reading and suggest books. So I really enjoyed Wiki Spaces.
Cool.
What about the look of wikis though? Because when I've looked at wikis, the layout of it never really appealed to me. What about that versus like a blog or kidsblog.org?
Yeah.
I thought about blogging, and the thing that I ran into there was just that it was more cumbersome for me to have all of my students, like all 76 of them, on the same page or doing the same sorts of things. So I sort of addressed the aesthetics of Wiki Spaces by encouraging those who understood web design to make it pretty. And so there were a couple of like little widgets that showed up, but I think in all honesty it was a much bigger project than we really anticipated. So they weren't as able as I had hoped to really, I was really hoping it was going to end up beautiful at the end. It was pretty clunky. It ended up being just a place for us to share.
Right.
But I think next year, if I show my students last year's wiki and say, they did a good work, but look at this, it's like a big long list, that might encourage them to kind of think about the format as well as the content.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Cool. Yeah, I've used kid blogs a little bit. Kidblog.org, I think it is, or whatever one that you were mentioning, Kate. And I didn't really stick with it. I might do that again a little bit this coming year. I'm not sure yet. Does that allow for customization of the space or no?
I don't know. But what problems did you have with it though that you didn't stick with it?
I was having kids write book reviews and recommend books to each other, and I didn't do enough work up front around buy-in and what this should look like. They weren't writing very high quality reviews, and I only had a limited time for kids to be on the computer each day, so I decided that I could better use that time to help kids learn how to type, or do other different kinds of activities. So I kind of put the kibosh on the kid blog. But I'd be interested in revisiting it. How have you used blogging?
That's on my list of things to do for this year.
Yeah.
We did a Google site where I loaded my students' essays on it and trying to get feedback, but we got some feedback, which was good, and we paired with Sam Patterson out in Palo Alto.
Right.
And he had his students respond to my kids' essays, which was great. But I really want to do more with it. But I wasn't sure of the structure. Like if I do individual, that's a lot to manage 130 blogs.
Oh, definitely.
So what about, pairing up or group blogging, like putting a group together for a blog. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I was trying to think about that structure too for it. Do you guys have any ideas on that?
Yeah, I might the wiki spaces does a lot. I mean, you can create small groups and then have, like, let's say 5 students in a group, and you know what each one is responsible for, then that would limit it. I blog personally on WordPress, and I noticed that you can invite guest bloggers, and I really like that feature. So that might be another way to do it. And those, I mean, that's pretty. Those are lots of bells and whistles on WordPress.
Right.
So that might be another way to handle. But yeah, the workflow when you're monitoring digital work is it's different. It's not harder, I don't think. It's just different than, you know, what I'm used to.
Just checking our time here. Is that 5 minutes until the slam? Is that with the updated schedule, or they are putting that back on track?
Yeah, when I just looked on the website, it says it starts at 12:50. I think that's California time, so I think we've got about 2 minutes.
Okay, so I guess we'll wrap it up here. I tried tweeting out a bunch of the links so far, and the tools that we've mentioned. So make sure that if you have your own blog, because I blog on Blogger, so make sure we share that with the group too,
Sure.
with EdcampHOME. So thank you, ladies. It's
Excellent.
been a pleasure chatting with you.
Yeah,
And,
you too.
I'll see you at the slam.
All right, good. Let's be in touch. I think I'm not sure if I'm following you on Twitter yet. I'll find you, but it'd be fun to loop back around during the year and share out what we're doing.
Yeah, that'd be great. Excellent.
Definitely.
Cool. All right, you guys
right.
have a good one.
You
All right,
too.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.